once was a world where doors didn't need locks, where the family doctor made house calls, and where you could buy a whole bag of candy for just 5 cents. That was America in the 1950s, an era where simplicity concealed incredible community strength. What happened during those golden years? Let's rediscover the forgotten memories from an age where trust was the most valuable asset. In 1950, home ownership was a tangible reality for many American families. The average house cost around $7,400. The crucial thing was that this house wasn't a cramped little box lacking space. On the contrary, you had a spacious yard where the kids could play freely, running around with their radio flyer wagons. Inside, the house featured shiny hardwood floors, which constantly needed polishing to maintain their attractive appearance. More important than the physical assets, you had neighbors who actually knew your name, fostering a sense of close-knit community and safety. The average annual salary in 1950 was around $3,200. You could buy a house, raise a family decently without constant worry about debt, and still manage to take a yearly vacation. Most American families had only one car, one TV, and one bathroom, and somehow that was enough. Financial sufficiency in the 50s didn't come from massive incomes, but from reasonable living costs and post-war economic stability. In 1955, a gallon of gas cost only 29 cents. This created incredible freedom for drivers. $5 was enough to fill the tank right to the brim. You didn't have to worry about how fast the meter was spinning as the pump tallied the cost. And after filling up, you still had enough change left over for a cold bottle of Coke and a pack of gum. Low fuel costs made long road trips easy, encouraging a driving culture on roads that were not yet the interstate highway system. Back then, pumping gas was a service experience. You didn't pump your own gas. When you drove into the station, a cheerful, usually neatly uniformed young attendant would step out to serve you. He didn't just fill the tank. He would clean your windshield spotlessly and call you sir, as a matter of course. It was a dedicated, customer-focused service, and part of a courteous culture where people were willing to help each other without expecting anything extra. If your mom needed bread in the 1950s, she wouldn't touch an app to order online. Instead, she would send you to the small local grocery store nearby. You'd hand the clerk $1 and you'd leave with a fresh loaf of bread, some fresh milk, and change jingling in your pocket. You felt like you had completed an important and responsible task. Small local grocery stores were the heart of the neighborhood. They weren't enormous supermarkets, but gathering places where everyone knew each other's names. The staff didn't just know your name. They knew your parents, your siblings, and might ask about your family vacation. You didn't get lost in endless aisles of a massive supermarket. It was a deep community experience where staff knew your favorite items and inquired about your family, reinforcing a sense of familiarity and security in town. The 1955 Chevy Bel Air grabbed attention on every street, becoming an unmistakable icon of the decade. With its magnificent two-tone paint, shiny chrome accents, and roaring V8 engine, this car looked like it was flying even when standing still. Owning a Chevy Bel Air was a sign of success, a badge you wore with pride. It clearly demonstrated the difference between a modern Chevy focused on performance and a classic Chevy focused on style and symbolism. In 1950, a movie ticket cost only 48 cents. For less than $1, you could have a comfortable seat, a box of popcorn, and maybe a fun cartoon before the main feature. No need for reservations, no endless trailers, you just showed up. Whatever film you chose, the experience was almost always worthwhile. The TV dinner debuted in 1953, bringing a whole new definition of convenience to the kitchen. It came in a shiny foil tray and cost 98 cents. Crucially, it promised a complete meal without having to wash any dishes. American families loved this convenience after a long day of work. Back then, no one called it processed food. Hey, it was simply convenient and provided a bit of fun eating off your own tray, often while watching the newly acquired black and white TV. If you were sick in the 50s, you wouldn't look up symptoms online or text your doctor. You called the family physician. He would arrive at your house with his familiar black bag, a thermometer, and a calm voice. He would examine you right there in the living room. This memory evokes a level of personal care and trust that is rare today, making you feel better instantly just by his presence. No locked doors. In the 50s, you didn't bother locking the door. Not because crime didn't exist, but because trust still existed in the community. If someone knocked, you welcomed them in. If they didn't knock, it was probably a cousin returning the ladder they borrowed last week. When you went away, house keys were often given to the neighbor to feed the cat. No alarm systems or surveillance cameras were needed, just trust between people and perhaps a fresh pie waiting for you on the kitchen table when you got home. This trust was the foundation of social life back then. In the early 1950s, television antennas started sprouting up on rooftops across the country. Families would send someone, usually the father or eldest son, up onto the roof or garage, equipped with a wrench and a bit of hope, trying to adjust the antenna just right. One wrong turn and the image turned back into static, but if done correctly, you would have a crystal clear, "I love Lucy." Car interiors. Car interiors were made of steel and vinyl, not designed for modern comfort. There were no cup holders, no airbags, and no electronics whatsoever besides the radio. If you left the car in the summer sun, the steering wheel was hot enough to fry an egg on. Everything was designed to be durable, easy to clean, and easy to fix, rather than for maximum comfort or safety. In 1950, most TVs had screens no bigger than a dinner plate. They weighed as much as a small refrigerator and had low resolution, typically only displaying black and white. Despite their modest size, the TV was the center of family entertainment, drawing everyone to gather in the living room. No remote. There were no remote controls or pause buttons in the early days of TV. If you wanted to change the channel using a rotary dial, you had to get up to do it. And typically, your father would make you do it, not as a choice, but as part of growing up and learning obedience. Every kid wanted the shiny red radio flyer wagon. It was used to haul everything from toys, pets, groceries, to even your siblings. When it rained, you flipped it over and it turned into a pirate ship, a secret fortress, or a turtle shell for shelter. The only upgrade you needed was imagination, an endless resource. Kids rode bikes without helmets. No elbow pads or foam padding, just scraped knees and streamers on the handlebars. If you fell, you limped home and mom would dab iodine on the wound as if it were miracle water. And somehow you survived, stronger, and learned lessons about caution and resilience. Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner was a non-negotiable ritual. The whole family gathered, including grandparents, cousins, and the noisy uncle who always told the same story every week. The traditional menu included roast beef, mashed potatoes, and the infamous Jell-O mold. The issue wasn't the meal, but the moments of gathering, the presence of family. Rotary dial phone. Telephone communication in the 50s was a process that required patience and focus. Phones were rotary dial, often hard-mounted to the wall in the kitchen or hallway with a coiled cord. To make a call, you had to dial each digit carefully. If you unfortunately dialed the last number wrong, you had to start dialing the entire phone number all over again. Most families only had one phone and one number, and if it rang, everyone ran to pick it up because there was no voicemail. Formal air travel. Air travel in the 1950s was a rare and extremely formal event. It wasn't just transportation, it was a special occasion. Men wore suits and ties while women wore gloves and hats. Passengers were treated like honored guests. They were served real meals with silverware and had plenty of legroom. Flight attendants always had warm smiles. Absolutely no one wore athletic clothes or pajamas on the plane, and certainly no one tried to bring strange pets into the cabin. Sputnik. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. Although it was only the size of a beach ball, the event sent shockwaves across America. Sputnik immediately accelerated the space race. This event made Americans concerned about falling behind technologically, and as a result, from then on, the word science became a much more important word in every American classroom, driving huge investments in education and research. No air conditioning. The summer experience in the 1950s was very different, as most American homes did not have central air conditioning. To combat the heat, people relied on traditional and simple measures. They cooled down by running large box fans, enjoying a tall, cool glass of lemonade, or sometimes they would sleep out on the porch or in the cool basement on the hottest nights. The important thing is that hardly anyone complained. It was simply part of summer. Fathers often said the heat helped build character, and people believed it. Glass bottle milk? Home delivery service was an integral part of life. Milk did not come in paper cartons. It arrived at your house in thick glass bottles. The milkman would place these cold bottles right on your doorstep before sunrise. These milk bottles would then be returned for reuse. reflecting a naturally sustainable consumption model. Ice Cream Man. The sound of the ice cream truck driving by on the street was a magical sound for kids in the 50s. Upon hearing the bell, children would run barefoot on the sidewalk, clutching their coins, screaming for favorite treats like bomb pops and drumsticks. At that time, no one worried about sugar or calories. It was all about the feeling of that first bite under the sun, with sticky fingers for the rest of the afternoon. Elvis Presley. Youth culture changed forever when Elvis Presley released his first single, That's All Right, in 1954. His arrival caused rock and roll to explode. Teenagers felt infused with a pure rush of energy, where every hip shake by Elvis seemed to be rewriting social rules. Conversely, some adults found his moves too provocative, lacking in respect. Parents panicked and preachers warned against this new music, but teenagers simply turned the music up louder. The beauty parlor. The beauty parlor was an important social center where daily gossip was spread. The signature scent of the salon was a blend of hairspray, perm solution, and various other chemicals. While their hair was in rollers and drying, women had time to chat and exchange information about their neighbors' lives. It was a private and essential space for social connection outside the family, reinforcing the bonds among women.